Owners and operators, welcome back to the Owner Ops Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. I have a special guest, Brandon Dixon, joining us. Brandon is a former MLB player, and since retiring from the league, he has purchased a street sweeping business in which he's now an owner-operator of. But interestingly enough, he is managing this business remotely. While living in Arizona, the business operates in California. Brandon, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, this is super exciting. I remember Ruff introduced us. He called me and he's like, man, you got to meet this guy, Brandon. He just bought this street sweeping business. He's jumping straight into it. And so that was super fun whenever we got to know each other.
Yeah, he's been super helpful with me. I reached out to him just because honestly, I had no business experience before this. It was all sports related, and I was like, okay, I need to find someone who can help me with um, the problems I'm going to be solving and how to go about thinking through those and things like that. So yeah, he's been awesome for me.
How did you come across the ex SMB community?
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit back is I was playing professional baseball, and one of the big questions that I was super scared of was everyone asking, so like, what are you going to do after baseball? Everyone knows like you're not going to play forever. You know, if you make it to 35, like that's a long career, which there's a lot of life after that. And for me, I never wanted to be in an office and have someone tell me what time I have to be there, what I have to wear, all of those things. And so I was just kind of looking for opportunities. And that was probably, I kind of stumbled into that. I think I early on it was reading the Navalmanak, and kind of his thoughts on creating wealth, and having assets. And I did the rich dad poor dad, kind of that whole progression, and then learning about buying businesses. I found a podcast Cody Sanchez was on with Eric Jorgensen, and she was just talking about buying businesses, things like that, and it just kind of matched up with the lifestyle I was hoping to get to at some point after baseball. um, and yeah, I came across the SMB world on Twitter, and after that just tried to learn as much as I could. There's still so much to learn, but now it's kind of fun because I get to take what I learn and put it directly into my business and try things and mess up and try again and do all of that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Before we jump into business stuff, like, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory in regards to just playing ball?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Southern California. Played baseball my whole life. Was lucky enough to go to college at U of A. Was drafted my junior year by the Dodgers in the third round, and then I played the last 10 years before this year professionally. So about five in the minor leagues, probably four in the minor leagues. And then I made it up with the Reds in the big leagues in 2018. Sent over to the Tigers for 2019, 2020. Then I had a year in Japan that I played, and then came back for my last two seasons with the Padres. The last 2 years I've been in San Diego. So um, that's kind of my baseball period. And yeah, it was super fun career. I was kind of towards the end of my career, I was kind of like the 26th man type of guy who was up and down. My last 2 years, I think I moved between the AAA site of El Paso and San Diego. I think I moved my family more than 10 times. And that's a little bit stressful, and a lot of moving parts. And we had a few offers to play this year, some minor league ball. And me and my wife were exhausted. We were tired of it and ready to try something new. And I had already bought this business last May. So yeah, that's kind of where we are now and catching us up. But yeah, 10 years of playing professionally, and lots of fun, lots of great experiences from it.
So you actually bought the business before you were done playing?
Yeah, yeah. So my buddy, one of my best friends is my business partner, and he had helped his first boss with this business. This was probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago. And it was his boss's dad's business. Um, and so he's a CPA, like very financial. He's a CFO of a company currently. And, he was working on this business a while ago. Well, the owner of the business reached out to him probably last April and told him that he had sold the business fully seller financed and the guy stopped paying him. And so he had to come out of retirement. He had already moved down a state. The business was falling apart. The trucks weren't taken care of. And he was like, hey, if you want to buy this, like you've worked on it, you're in, like, I know you did a good job when you were working on it. I'll give you a great deal. We have some contracts in place, but it's not what it used to be. And so my buddy, we had been looking at different opportunities and things like that. And I was playing in San Diego. And yeah, when we closed, I was in the Padres clubhouse, and my buddy gave me a call and was like, "Hey, we're we're the owners of a street sweeping business in Ventura, California. So let's go. Let's do it."
That's great. Can you talk to us about the structure of the deal? I remember reading one of your tweets about it, and it sounds like you guys got a pretty good deal on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like this wasn't the typical business that you're going to go out and look for. We weren't really looking for a turnaround. And so when he brought it up, we went through the financials, and it was losing money every month. But he was doing, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20,000 in revenue a month. Not actively growing it, didn't wasn't doing Google ads, a lot of things like that. So we thought there was room for growth. And so we just kind of researched the equipment that he had. He had about 2 trucks that were running and in decent shape, and 12 total trucks that had just kind of fallen by the wayside. And our yard was just, it was a dumpster. It was tough. But so we weren't super interested, other than like, okay, can we for sure get our money back based on the equipment costs? And so we offered him 90,000, fully seller financed, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And within the first week of running things, one of the 2 trucks that was running had a pretty big, its elevator broke, and basically like that cost us an extra 15 grand, like right off the bat. And we reached back out to him and we were like, hey, this equipment is not nearly as nice as you said. Like we're having a lot of issues. Can we take off another 30 grand? And the guy was like, yeah, but you guys just do whatever you guys need. Not worried about purchase price. Fully seller financed over 5 years. Just I want this business to survive and make it. And so let's do whatever you guys need to.
That's crazy to have someone like that who's willing to work with you that will. It's almost unheard of.
Yeah, I think so he's 75. He was having some health issues, and he was having to run it from out of state because he had already moved out. And it it wasn't an attractive, like it was, I think I just looked at the month before we bought it, and he had lost $7,000 in that was its net profit for that month. And so it was going to be a task to take on. And we thought, okay, at a minimum, we could sell all of this equipment for maybe 120 grand if we're lucky, more likely 100,000. And so if we can just typical investment advice, like if I can buy this for 60 and try and run it for a year, if everything falls apart, we'll sell, we'll probably have lost a little bit of money during that time, and let's sell all the equipment, get our money back, see what happens. So it was kind of like my low risk way of getting into a business and getting to learn the skills that I had no experience with. Because yeah, taking on a huge SBA loan or something like that, my first shot, and learning on my dime sounded really scary. And this was like a good middle path of getting to learn everything while also not taking a huge financial risk personally.
Definitely. There had to be some conviction there though about, all right, this business is losing $7,000 or it lost $7,000 last month. What was the conviction of, hey, I think that I could do this, or I think I could do X, Y, and Z to get it back, either break even
Yeah.
or profitable pretty quickly.
Honestly, so I was playing and I had a good income. My business partner had a good income. And so we both thought like we don't need to make money for a little bit on this. Like we can wait it out. And there wasn't a ton of due diligence to do. My buddy had worked in the business um 8 to 10 years before that, and um at its prime the business was doing just under 1 million in revenue. And so we knew that there was work out there if we could grow it, and get some relationships, get some contracts, and we just thought, I trusted him that there's some opportunity here. It kind of fit the bill of having recurring contracts. It's a need. We kind of looked around this area. There was only one other company that we could find who was doing what we were doing, probably within 40 to 50 miles. And so we thought, okay, if we could just be the guy in this small area, we could get our revenue back up, we could get profitable, and slowly get there.
What were some of the first changes you made whenever you guys took over ownership?
All of the basics. So the former owner hadn't raised prices in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and so we raised the prices to. I just called around and asked, "Hey, I got a project for street sweeping. Um, what's your hourly?" And everyone was somewhere between 165 and 195 an hour, and we were at 135. I think we were at 125 or 135. And I was like, okay, well, first off, we got to raise our prices. Like we're 50 to $60 an hour. That's crazy. So we bumped that up to 165 and then 185. So that was a big one. We added minimums on the hourly rates. So we don't do anything less than 4 hours. And then we did a new website, a professional website. We had started SEO services, Google Ads, kind of the basic things to be online and get some calls and some traction. And then we started to see some success there and just kind of doubled down on that. And probably over the last, since January, maybe February, we started a lot of cold outreach, lots of cold calling. Anytime I'm in town, I come in and I'll just drive around and look for construction sites, hand out business cards, just start to meet other companies. And yeah, I think we've sent out, I set up like some cold email and things like that. So we've sent out probably 10,000 emails, and we're just kind of spreading the word to anyone who could be a customer, and doing the basics.
That's awesome. I always say it, since I played football, I always say that you're doing the blocking and tackling,
Yeah.
but for you, it's like what would that term be in baseball?
Um, I would just say like the fundamentals, like you're catching the ball, hitting the ball, and like you're playing good baseball. Like you're just doing the fundamentals of like you have to catch the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball. Like that's the only thing you can do. You don't have to make the flashy play. You don't got to be diving and doing all of that, hitting home runs. Like if you can just make contact, put the ball in play, you have a shot. And so that's kind of what we're doing is like let's make sure we're hitting all of the basics that we're learning. And then from there, see what opportunities we have. So we're in the process of kind of like catching up on some of the cold outreach that projects are coming up, and um, finally some HOAs contracts are coming up, and just adding on the recurring side, and then adding on the project based side.
I mean, I just love what you've done though. Like you had no experience. You didn't really think twice about it. You just jumped in head first and said, "Hey, we're just going to do the fundamentals well, or block and tackle very well." Um, it's like some of our listeners are sort of in that phase of just starting. Like you heard Brandon just talk about it, and he talked about a couple things. He came in, he called around, asked for fair market pricing. He revamped the website, had a professional design the website, invested in SEO services, and then he did some cold outreach. And then you're doing just the fundamentals of going and handing out business cards. And since doing those three things, what has the difference been?
It's been, I mean, we're growing pretty quick. I would say for a sweeping business. I don't know for other businesses, but like the most recent month, we're what, I don't know, 14, 15 months into this. Probably we we just started focusing on California in January. So if we go back a little bit, we took some of the old equipment that couldn't be registered in California because of all of the California emission laws and everything like that. There, we had old equipment we were going to take out to Arizona where we live and start a company there along with this business. And we did that for about 4 months, and we're just getting crushed by taking them into dealerships, getting the trucks back up running. And every job we sent a truck to, something would break that cost us 5 grand. And within, I think, 3 months of doing that, we both looked at each other and we're like, okay, we're profitable in, or we're close to profitable in California. We have contracts. We aren't even focusing on that. Let's go there. So we cut everything outside of California in December. And so we've gone from, they were doing 17,000 the month before we bought it. And this last month we just did 75,000 in revenue. And we've been profitable since January 1st, since we cut Arizona. It hasn't been crazy profitable, but as we kind of build up the monthly revenue and the recurring revenue and stuff, each month has been a little bit more profitable. So it's been a fun transition to see and kind of wait out and not really know if it was going to happen, and slowly it's happening.
That's so awesome. I am unbelievably excited to hear that. Um, it's interesting. It's like some people who are listening to this who aren't in the game of entrepreneurship, it may just be like, oh, you guys just talk numbers all the time. But like to me, it's just the scorecard in which you view
Yeah.
your performance, right? Am I putting in the inputs that's leading to the outputs that we want? And as former athletes, like if you're competitive in any way, shape, or form, if you're getting into a professional business, like it is just the scorecard in which you track yourself. And so hats off to you for the growth. I'm excited to hear that. You'll have to text me whenever you hit your first 100K month.
Yeah, that's the next goal. It was coming into January, it was like, okay, we got to get to a $50,000 month. And then once we hit that, we were like, okay, 75 is the next goal. And July was our first time hitting that. And so yeah, we keep kind of moving the goalposts, but it's been a lot of fun to go on that journey and kind of see what it takes to get there.
It always moves, but that's the fun part of it. My question for you is, when did you first invest in a professionally designed website and SEO?
That was our initial investment. So when we bought the business, we rebranded it, and it was Pacific Sweep originally. We were like, okay, there's no value in that. Let's change things up. We did Cleaner Streets. That's the name of the company, and we hired a guy right off the bat. Hey, build the website. we didn't know much about SEO, but thankfully this guy did. And he built it based on that. And he wasn't doing a ton on the Google ads or SEO. We didn't really know the importance of that probably until like January. And we were doing, I mean, I think we spent maybe $200 a month on Google ads, and he was doing just a little SEO. And then we found a couple agencies, and we started with a couple, didn't quite work out. And then we came across Striker, and we've been using them for the last 3 months, and they've been crushing it. They've been just killing it. And so we've had 2 of our last 3 months have been our highest revenue, like back to back to back. So it's been really fun to work with them and see what they're doing, and let let the professionals take care of the things that I have no idea how to do.
Man, I'm over here smiling like while I'm on mute because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're about to, if you haven't already, you're about to get it. Those guys are incredible, and yeah, they've helped me in my business. I think you've probably seen me talk about it, but the results we've gotten from them is just crazy. Like, I don't know what kind of wizardry they're doing on the back end, but they're doing something right.
Yeah, yeah, that's and honestly, reaching out to some other people on SMB who had used them, and I was just like, okay, we're I actually ended a contract early and was paying for 2 months because I just wasn't happy with what we were getting and what we were doing. Our former ad agency, I found out we were getting, I kept getting calls of people asking for jobs, and they didn't speak English, and I couldn't track the numbers. I was never getting like where the numbers were coming from. And finally, they sent me like a call log, and they had launched a campaign and based it just off of clicks. And slowly, I don't know how it works, but slowly we were advertising that we were hiring, and I was spending money every month that we were hiring, and we weren't hiring. And and so when I finally got that, I was like, okay, you guys need to cancel this contract. This is what's happening. I'm wasting money every month with you guys. And I hit up Striker, and they took over everything. And I'm really glad I did. It's been good. So this isn't a plug for them, but they're awesome. They're doing great work. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, they definitely are. I love the brand, by the way. Cleaner Streets.
Yeah, yeah. We saw it was available, which was a little shocking. There's actually a big company which we didn't know about, probably an hour or two from us, called Clean Streets, and so yeah, we're kind of fit into that cleaner street space where we can, with it, we can kind of offer other services as well, like pressure washing. We offer asphalt quotes if people call. We'll do anything. We don't do all the work, but I can find subcontractors or whoever, and yeah, it's been fun.
I mean, the brand is, it's like the foundation for a scalable company in this space.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, they were Pacific Sweep. It was great, but yeah, we were looking for something that could have a little bit of a brand and was generic enough to kind of match some services, but also like very specialized. If you were looking for street sweeping, you're looking for a cleaner street, and it just kind of fit.
It definitely fits. And you got a beautiful website. It looks professional. Hats off to you for just making that decision early on. Because as Bodie and Andy probably told you, SEO just takes time. And for any of you who are listening, it's like the sooner you can make that decision and the sooner you can do what Brandon did and invest quickly in a modern design website and service pages and service areas, like you're doing everything right at this point. And I'm just excited to see whenever this takes off for you, because
Yeah,
it's, I mean, now it's just plug and play. Like, you can add different service areas, you can add different services. This is going to be awesome to watch you grow.
yeah. And I think honestly, with some of the results, I know you've done it a little bit with like the hot tub and power washing and kind of doing other business sites and getting leads. It's something that I'm kind of looking into for some of the ancillary services that we could offer and send out to other people. So I'm probably going to pull the trigger on something fairly soon to start seeing if it works in some other areas.
Here's the thing, like, once the light bulb clicked for me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a huge opportunity." And the hardest thing for me right now is not to go start 100 of these. But
Yeah.
I've reeled myself back in because I mean, like, once I saw how quickly Andy and Bodie can, 1, crank out a website, and then 2, start ranking it, I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we did that with a power washing site here in Colorado, started getting leads pretty quickly, and I ended up selling that one to, one of my friends, or a friend of a friend, and, he's like, he just did a contract with Sherwin-Williams for, like, 28 trucks the other day, just from a lead from the website. And it all comes back to, like, this whole principle of, I think we all kind of saw it, right? Like, let's find the unsexy business. But now, as millennials, like, we know how we search for services, or we know how we search for
Yeah.
products. So if we can just position our brands digitally in front of our customers, then those are going to be the brands that get elevated for the next 1, 2, 3 decades. And the people who are not doing it, like, I hate to say it, it's just, if you're not online, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was when I first started doing research about this. I just would Google street sweeping in random cities and try and find anyone who had a decent looking website. And I came across like maybe a few street sweeping companies. And so one of them, well, every one of them that I found, that I was like, oh, they look like they're doing a good job. I just called them and spoke with the owner, asked what they're doing. Um, the sweeping community has been pretty awesome. We have an association that I'm in, that um, I'm one of, I don't know, 70 owners that just do street sweeping that are in this association. So I call one or two a week and just pick their brain on the industry and stuff. And one of the first guys I found, he had been in the business for about 30 years, and he was like, "Hey, a lot of guys, they just do word of mouth, um, but that's great. You really got to spend some money on SEO." And for him to say that, and he had by far like the nicest website. He had a great online presence. Like, he looked like he was just crushing it. I was thinking, okay, this guy's got 30, 40 trucks. Um, and he had told me he had sold his last business that did have, I think, 25 trucks at its peak. And he was back starting over again at 3 trucks. And it was like kind of a light bulb moment of like, okay, you can look a lot bigger and a lot better than you actually are. And hopefully get some jobs to get there. So you kind of want to look better until you can. It's kind of a fake it till you make it. um, and that's what we've done. We had no idea what we were doing when we started. I still have no idea what I'm doing with street sweeping, but I'm slowly catching up on the operations side, and our online presence has really helped get us there.
Let's talk operations of the business.
Yeah.
So, and let's start with business model. Like, what is a street sweeping business, and why do customers pay you for these
Yeah.
services?
So obviously, I don't know every market and how it is for each state, but California is very strict on everything, but especially with environmental things. And so there's about 4 different ways that we can offer our services. So we have the basics of municipalities, so cities hiring out services, and they just, you're putting a bid on a website based on the curb miles that they have, and you're doing, those are typically your contracts that get renewed for 3 to 5 years. So we have one of those, and that came with the business. We bid on 3 or 4 others outside of outside of cities, you have HOAs. Any private community is paying for their own sweeping in our area. So any gated community in California, there's tons of gated communities. So we're doing outreach to commercial property managers, and then you have the other side of the commercial, which is parking lots, that you're doing after hours. This could be anything from like your local grocery store to an industrial, like we do a cardboard manufacturing company, and they just have a ton of dirt. They have a ton of cardboard and stuff like that. We go there 2 or 3 times a week. Like we have another one that's a lot of manufacturing companies. So that can be parking lots that are just basic grocery store strip malls to industrial. And then and then on the contractor side, any commercial project, any commercial construction project that dirt could be tracked off of the site, they're responsible for cleaning up. And they're also responsible on the site, if it's a big enough project, keeping the dust mitigated. So it's not just kind of blowing around and you're making a mess everywhere. So they typically get pressured by the cities and counties by their inspectors to come in and say, hey, you need this service. And so that's kind of when they call us. Usually they're about to get a fine or get their project shut down, and they call us, hey, can you get a sweeper out here today? And so any dirt track out, anything like that, we come and sweep. So that's kind of like the different avenues that we get customers and who our profiles are.
Are those contractors one-off customers, or if somebody calls you like that on a big development project, are you selling them on like, hey, we'll come by the end of the week, and then we'll come every 2 weeks, or do you have any sort of recurring mechanism to that?
Yeah. So currently we have a big home developer, and they have 12 communities that they're building currently near us. And we have them on a twice a week schedule for each one. And that'll be for their entire project. And then once they're done building it, I'll ask whoever they're going to use for management to then come in and upkeep it. So right now we're doing like all the dirt track out with our construction sweeper. It's a big broom that, picks up all the dirt. But once it's done, we'll do a vacuum sweeper that's mostly just like light leaves, debris, when a community's finished, what they would have. So we have quite a few on like a recurring weekly or twice monthly, but most of them are typically finishing up their job and they're getting off site and need everything to get cleaned up before they close everything.
How are you finding those?
A lot of that's been cold calling, and then uh, I think the majority of them find us on Google. So I've gone through and I mean, I've scraped hundreds of lists, but uh, anything that's relating to like road construction. So Caltrans is the name of like our road service in California, and so any project that comes up on Caltrans that's somewhat in our area, I'll look and find every single person who's bidding on it. And then I'll call them and say, hey, if you ever have any projects in the area, we'd love to help you guys out. And then that's also, I mean, any commercial site that I drive by, like yesterday, I was going to Starbucks and they're putting in, I think they're putting in like a Chick-fil-A or something like in this little shopping center, and there's a bunch of dirt and stuff. And so I just walked up over to the guy and it's like, hey, introduce myself. Do you guys ever like, looks like you're moving some dirt around. Like, do you guys ever hire out street sweeping? He's like, yeah, I actually need someone next week. And so, I mean, he said, here's the number for my office. We'll book you next week. So it can be as simple as that, or, guys calling in a panic. And so the first thing they do is look on Google.
How do you bid those jobs?
So those are all hourly. So those have been the easiest for me to bid because I know if it's non-prevailing wage at 185 an hour, I know my costs, I know everything. Like we're going to do a 4-hour minimum. Typically they need us on the for 4 to 8 hours. I think our average one-time invoice is just under 8 hours, about 6 hours. And sometimes it's, takes us an hour and a half and we're still billing them for 4 hours and on another site billing them for 4 hours. So that's when things are really cooking, is when you have a few customers paying you throughout the day for travel time and stuff like that. So that's kind of how we do those. For the other ones that are kind of contracted on monthly recurring services, it's a little different. You're kind of doing it based off how big it is and what debris you're going to have. And those with the vacuums, we don't have a high dump. Like the truck doesn't, it can't dump into a dumpster. It's just out of the back. And so you have to take it to a disposal site. That's when things get a little bit more expensive. Currently we're at, they just went from $55 a ton to 95 last month. So our expenses have gone up quite a bit in that area. But yeah, so you're just kind of trying to bake in all of that pricing. The hardest by far is the municipal contracts of, okay, there's 20,000 curb miles a year that we're going to sweep. How much time is that going to take me? How much disposal are we going to have? Like, there's a lot of guessing going on, but we've been able to be very close, and we actually won one recently that they took away from us because of our experience. So I was pretty
I
bummed
saw
about
that.
it. It
Yeah.
was, man, it was a heartbreaker. I was in Hawaii and I got a call from them and they were like, "Hey, you guys were the low bidder. We're super excited to get going with you guys. Can you get rolling in 7 days?" And I was like, "Can I call you back?" It was like a moment of just sheer panic because I needed to buy 4 trucks, hire 6 drivers because we would be going overnight with 2 trucks, and I was like, "Man, I don't know how we're gonna do this." And so I called some of the guys, some of the sweeping owners that I've been in touch with, and all of them were like, "Oh, that they shouldn't do that. They can't do that. No one, that's not industry standard. Like no one could do that. Everyone, even the biggest private equity companies buying trucks for new contracts, they don't just have 6 trucks waiting around." And so I reached back out with like a little more confidence of like, okay, this is what's normal. Because this was kind of my first negotiation, and I shared that with them. They were totally on board. Okay, we'll do September 1st start date. And even then I was like, this is gonna be hard. So we started going down that process, and they were going to our references. They gave our references 2 days to respond, and we had I think we had 3 references, and only one of them responded, and it was our smallest contract that we had. And so they basically reached out to us and were like, "We aren't confident that you guys can do this. You've only We technically didn't fit the profile. We were supposed to have 3 years experience with cities. We only had one." So they ended up pulling it from under us and gave it to the current customer, or the current vendor. But yeah, so those have been interesting, and we're getting better on that side. So there's some exciting opportunities to grow on the municipal side, but for now, slow and steady where we're at.
There's nothing like just shooting your shot, and then whenever you
Mm.
get the contract, having that "Holy crap, I gotta go figure this out" moment, but we're gonna say yes, and I've got like 7 days or 14 days or whatever it is. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like those are the moments though that really challenge you, and I don't know about how you feel about this, but when that's happened to us in the past, those are the moments where it's like, "Okay, this is pushing us to the next level," because it's challenging us to think about, "How would I go get those 4 trucks?" So, 1, let's start with, like, where would I even get those? 2, how would I finance them? Or 3, would I lease them? Um, for? Like, how do I need to price them? And it like, I don't know about you, but did it make you think through all of those
Oh,
scenarios?
oh yeah, yeah. So I actually we had 4 trucks ready. We had financing already set up. We were about to pull the trigger on the trucks, and I was just waiting. I sent over an email, and I was like, "Hey, I'm we're ready. We just need a letter of intent for this contract. I'm not buying these trucks until I know we're getting this. Otherwise, I have 4 trucks that I don't have work for." And so yeah, it was definitely that moment of like, okay, if I do really want to grow this business, then I have to be able to do these city contracts. Like this, I need to be able to fulfill a 4 truck, um, 6 day a week service. And that's if that's the goal, why can't why can't I just learn that now? Like why can't I just get there today? And I knew operationally it would break a lot of things, and it would just smoke out the areas I haven't been paying attention to, whether that's mechanically or okay, we need a separate yard closer to them so we save on travel time or whatever it is. We can start to become more efficient once we're in that position where it smokes out what's wrong with the business. And that was kind of how I looked at it. It was like, I know we can have sweepers out there and we can figure out a way to get it done. It might not be perfect for a few months, but eventually, by the end of a year, I mean, we'll be in a position to take over any city contract after that.
What was the size of that contract? Can you talk?
Yeah, that was so we won it at 950,000 a year in revenue, and that was so the city contracts are different now because they've classified sweeping as prevailing wage, which I've been having to learn about since the beginning. And so there's obviously union companies. There's so many dynamics to that, but basically the prevailing wage rate for paying our drivers and everything comes out to, with all of the benefits for these projects, they're getting 77 to $80 an hour that the state's mandating that we're paying. Yes, it is insane. And so obviously our rates go way up on prevailing wage jobs. um, our drivers were going to make 150,000 at least sweeping 5 days a week. And so I'm pumped because I got, these guys who have been with me from the start. And I'm like, these guys are finally going to get a payday. Like, this is sick. I love taking care of my guys. And so, yeah, we tried to bake in all of the costs. We tried to figure out everything that it would do. This one, we were lucky. The city had a disposal yard that we weren't going to pay for disposal, and they had a fueling area, so we weren't going to pay for fuel. So like two of the big variables I could just kind of quickly put away, and two of my costs were taken care of. And so now it was just figuring out truck costs, wages, overtime, because we would be on Saturdays, all of that. So once we got that number, I put in like a pretty good buffer of like I can still mess up and be profitable. And our only other competition is a huge private equity company, and we have a lot less overhead than they do. We don't have the facilities or the managers or all of the stuff that comes with them. So we're getting close to kind of being an annoying pest to them.
That's great. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
How much do those trucks, like if you were to go purchase those, you mentioned financing. What would the terms of those trucks look like? And how much would each of them cost you per month?
Yeah. So we currently have we were kind of based off, we have 2 trucks financed. We've had to replace all of the equipment so far. So we bought 2 off auction, and we got those at really good deals from the city of Scottsdale. We got each for about 17 grand, which that's kind of unheard of to get get a working truck at that price. But we were going to get some nicer equipment that we thought could be more reliable. So a few years used. And those trucks were running in anywhere from 150 to 200,000. We can get about a 5-year term. Typically, you're looking at anywhere from 8 to 10% interest. And we I calculated, okay, if I have $200,000 worth of truck payments, I just put that into the bid. Like, I'm making sure every truck on this project's getting paid for. And there still is some risk there because, I could win the bid and have the trucks on it for 2 years, and then they could kick us off and I still have those trucks. But they hold their value pretty well. You can, right now, there's 2015, 2016 trucks that are in the $120,000-$150,000 range. So they hold their value, and I would have someone else paying off my truck loans.
So those came out to be what, like roughly $3,700 a month per truck?
It would be just over $4,000. We had one truck that we could use, that we currently don't have work for, so we were only going to have to get 3 for it. And then I think we would have had to replace it at some point during the contract. So that was kind of the plan, was like, okay, if we could have truck payments of $4,000, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but what is that? 12 grand a month. So 100, yeah. If we could have 3 of those, we're set. We can make it work.
I love it. So these are things I think through, because as you know, we operate heavy equipment in our business as well. And so I always like to have this conversation. How do other owners look at heavy equipment? There's so many different ways you can skin this cat. You can buy with cash, you can purchase under a finance agreement, or you can lease your equipment. And this is something this is something, like I've mentioned, I try to extract from every very successful business owner, because I feel like this is an area that can either make or break you. I've looked at it a very similar way you have. It's like, hey, this truck is going to cost me X amount per month, and then here's my total equipment burden. I'm going to add this into the bid. Here's my wages. But it sounds like you were going down the finance route and just thinking this truck is going to cost me roughly $48K a year in payments. And then if I operate that for several years, it's still going to have some sort of value that I could resell for if everything hit the fan.
Yeah. And it was, those buying equipment for that, I'm buying them for a job that I have for at least a year. That's pretty rare. We just bought one of our newest trucks, and for the construction side. So now we have 2 construction brooms and then 2 trucks that we send on the vacuum. So they can do HOAs, cities, and they can do a construction site if they need to. It's just not ideal. And we needed something a little more reliable on the construction side. So I called out to each of these owners and was like, how do you know when to buy a piece of equipment? Like, I need something reliable, so it needs to be newer, because I just had to, we had one construction truck and it broke literally, like a strange piece on the elevator that brings all the dirt up. A strange piece snapped in half, and it was going to take 3 weeks to get. And so I'm like, I can't just not service these guys. So we used our vacuums and we just made it work for 3 weeks. But in that process, I was like, okay, we gotta add a truck. And one of these owners said, if I have to turn down, if I have to turn down 5 jobs a month for back-to-back months, I know I don't have enough equipment, because I know 5 jobs, I'm definitely making that payment. And I was at the point where I was like, okay, if this truck stays down, I'm gonna have to start turning down jobs. And we were able to make it work. Guys were working overtime. But yeah, we made it work. And so we decided, all right, let's just purchase another truck, and we went ahead with that. But yeah, that it's a challenge to kind of decide when to invest. Okay, is this just a good month, or is this kind of the trajectory we're going?
Yeah, I've worked very hard to like every successful business owner I know. I always ask if they operate equipment. I always try to ask them like, what's the answer there? And one of the business owners who I respect the most, he's a great operator. He's here locally. I'll keep the business private just for his privacy sake. But last week I was having this conversation with him, and he's like, "It's just a gut feel. You gotta trust your gut." I was like, "Thanks, man. That gives me a lot of confidence here." So you're either gonna be right or you're gonna be wrong, and it's all gonna be on you. But welcome to entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if this is just like being naive or competitive or whatever, but like if I add a $4,000 a month payment, I'm going to be working pretty hard to make sure that truck's on the road. And that happened. We bought the truck. We had our best month. This was June, July. This was in May. We had our best month. Tons of work, tons of construction. This truck is killing it. Like I'm having two construction jobs going at a time, plus our recurring, and I'm pretty pumped. And then June hit, and the construction jobs just ended. Like we just took a pretty big dip in construction, and I was fixing all of our other trucks, so it was like a super expensive month. And I'm thinking in my head like, oh, I made such a terrible decision already. And so I started calling. Like I had kind of slowed down on my cold calling. I had slowed down on our cold outreach, and I just started, you know, setting up the email campaigns, all of that. And then things started to get some traction, and then yeah, this last month was our highest on the construction side. We did 35 grand just in construction sweeping. So it it kind of like lit that fire of like, all right, you got to figure this out to make this payment. And so I don't want to ever get back to that of, all right, how are we going to make this payment?
So taking what you learned from that, how are you implementing principles moving forward?
Yeah. So we now have, uh, I have someone overseas that's helping me on the operations side. And I eventually would like her. Currently, I'm doing everything from the first call to booking the jobs to invoicing, all of that. She has now taken over the dispatching and communications with our drivers, getting them their schedules, all the details. And I have her cold calling, and then following up with any past customers monthly. And then I'm also cold calling, cold emailing, doing everything. But eventually, I would like her to kind of take some of the phone calls and things like that. So um, to answer your question in a general way, we just like I have lists, and yesterday she called 150 people. We got 7 leads and 2 that want us to send them a proposal. So like that's it. We're making sure we're hitting like, are we calling, you know, what is it? Probably 500 people a week. Like if we can call 500 people a week, we can find a couple of leads that will eventually book outside
I
of
love
what's
that.
already coming in.
I love that, man. That is so awesome. Like commit to the inputs and then the outputs take care of themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and it like if it's just me, there's times where there's more important things than making 500 phone calls. And so that's kind of a thing that a little bit of an unlock that I've learned hiring her. And I initially hired her just because I needed someone who could speak Spanish with my drivers. And she's out in Colombia. And I had a few drivers that had a ton of experience that I wanted to hire, but I couldn't communicate other than Google Translate. And so I brought her on as kind of she's going to be my translator and run operations. And now she's getting into sales. And I think she closed her first job recently, she was super excited. So it's been fun.
Is she your only remote hire?
Yeah, currently she is. And then I have a business partner. So we're 75-25. Um, and he's got the finance background. And so he has an accounting firm as well. And they do all of our financials and everything like that. So he has a couple people overseas that help him with his accounting firm that also hop in on our business.
So let's talk roles and responsibilities. You hired, well, you delegated first to, let's just call it back office assistant in the beginning. Is
Yeah,
that fair?
yeah, yeah. So that was the first hire, and I think we haven't gotten there yet, but I'm not in person. I come into town, so I'm currently in person. I'm in Ventura, California right now, and I come into town probably 3 or 4 days every month, and check on things, make sure things are getting done how I want. But other than that, we have no management in person other than our drivers, and so we're giving them a lot of accountability with taking care of the trucks. And we have a mechanic who works independently, and we contract him. He's been amazing. He'll drop everything to come help us, and he can fix anything. So he's a bit of a, supervisor as well, because when he comes to the truck, these guys haven't been washing it or greasing the bearings or something like that, then he lets me know. I get on them. So that's kind of like our accountability. But yeah, it's me and the drivers, and then our overseas hire, and then my buddy and his back office team.
Okay. So what roles and responsibilities does your back office hire handle?
They do basically they're doing are you talking about the girl we hired overseas?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, so Laura, um she's doing all of dispatching. So every day she's sending out schedules. We're on Jobber. Our guys have had a little technical difficulties with looking at their schedules and knowing which customer address is the right one and which one's to their corporate headquarters, and things like that. So I have her sending out maps, their schedule for the day. She's booking all the business once it comes in. She's invoicing through Jobber. She's running about 100% on Jobber, um, everything in that, and then she's doing the communication with them throughout the day. Something comes up, a tire popped, an issue happened. She's putting them and taking care of those issues with a little bit of help. So she's kind of becoming the operator, hopefully within the next few months. And I can kind of think through what's next, or just do the areas that I enjoy. So yeah, it's been fun to learn that skill of like delegating, managing people, and using using leverage of having someone else working while you're working on something else. It's pretty crazy.
How did you find her?
We used Sagan Passport, um, with John Matzner's group, and she is well overqualified for this position. She was working with a company based out of Mexico, I think. And she was managing over 100 freightliners, like big trucks, and helping with any issues that came up with the drivers. Kind of a similar role, like dispatching, that kind of things, and customer service with them. So for her to go from there to 2 to 3 trucks on the road, I think there's times where she's like, all right, I want to do more. And so that's been fun, because she's growing as our business is growing, and she's been a big part of that.
And she's probably making more money doing less work with you.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. So it works out for everyone.
This, I believe, is the biggest unlock for US based business owners. I was even talking to my wife last night. I'm like, man, if I was still working corporate, like I would just be that guy who gets slapped on the wrist because I'd be like, okay, I'd go get a software sales job, and then I'd just hire someone remote to do it, and then I'd go get another job, and then just stack the jobs together. My wife was like,
Yeah.
"You're crazy," um, but I'm actively going through making our first remote hire as well, and so I'm glad to hear that you had good success with Sega Passport. I have not actually met John yet. We've engaged on X back and forth, but I need to get him on the podcast. I had Baird Kleinsmith. Have you met him yet?
No, I haven't.
He's a self-storage operator, and so his whole team, basically his whole business is ran uh, in Latin America or by Latin American talent. And so he actually co-founded a company called Hire Latam, and
Okay.
it's a similar deal.
Yeah.
What was the structure like whenever you worked with Sagan?
I think it's so the interesting thing with that is my buddy was using them for his accounting firm. And so I think they do, I think it's like a year membership that you're paying monthly. And they'll go out and recruit 6 hires. So a street sweeping business we don't need 6 people right now overseas. But between his accounting firm and our street sweeping business, we probably would need 4 to 5 people at least. And so it kind of fit what we needed, and we just used one of the hires for that, and it's been great. And they also have, I mean, they have a school platform where they put out a ton of engaging content that like is operations or onboarding or any of the questions that you have with bringing on someone overseas, which we knew nothing about. And so it's been helpful to have those resources for hiring, delegating, managing them, how to keep things organized. She's built out our whole Notion platform with all of our standard operating procedures, our onboarding procedure. She's organizing a business that is not an area of expertise I have. I'm usually like a Google Drive, and things are just kind of spread out, and I know where to search and stuff. So she kind of keeps me organized and puts everything where it should be.
Yeah, you and I are similar in that, very similar in that. And so, yeah, I'll be interested to hear how she develops in her role and sort of what roles and responsibilities you give her. So we'll definitely have to have, like, with the podcast, what I want to do is with all of my guests, the people I've brought on, they're in early stages of business. Most of them are. And so the route I want to go with it is bring people on a second time, like 6 months to a year later. And
Yeah,
then we'll give people who are listening the ability to say, okay, like Brandon was at this stage. Here's what he was thinking about then. Here are the decisions he made. And then like we can come back around in 6 to 12 months and we can say, okay, did those decisions pay off? How have you developed in your areas, like your responsibilities? What have you delegated? And yeah, I'd love to hear sort of like how that transpires.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, so her hire was basically to get some Spanish speaking drivers. But this is my first summer off of baseball I mean, I'm 32, so I've been doing this since I was 3 years old. So this is my first summer without baseball. And so my family, I have a wife and an 18-month-old, and we wanted to enjoy it. Like we wanted to go hang out, and we did a big Hawaii trip. We had a 3-week trip to Hawaii because I have some family out there. And the goal when I hired her was when I go to Hawaii, I want her to be able to manage things so I don't have to be on my phone all the time and doing a ton of work. And with the time change and stuff, I could wake up at 4 a.m., which was 7 a.m. in California, and work from 4 till everyone woke up, make sure things were running well, and then I could take off. And she managed everything for 3 weeks, and nothing broke. It was our highest revenue producing month, our highest profit, and it was. I thought so much depended on me. And it was a nice realization that I'm actually not that special and other people can do this job. Um, and so I was in Hawaii and on a beach, and my business was making more money than it had ever made. And I was like, okay, this might be too good to be true. But if nothing breaks, she's able to handle things and I can just take phone calls, then that gives me space now to think through those thoughts of 6 to 12 months. What do we want to be doing? Are we focusing just on sweeping, or, we're getting a lot of asphalt leads. Do we need to look into that and maybe look at buying a local asphalt company, or are we just going to sub out everything? And so it's given me time back to think more than just what we're doing, how to get better here. And I'm going to keep doing that, but it's giving me, some freedom to think, okay, what's next? Like what's the next project, or is it just here?
I was laughing here again because I'm literally experiencing the same things of those realizations of whenever you have a team in place, not only can that team do things very well, they can oftentimes do things better than we can, especially at their specific roles. And I think that that was like one of the hardest lessons I've learned in the last year because, like you, it's like, especially from playing sports, like you're, you only achieved any sort of success by how much effort you put into something. And I think that that's the hardest translation. I'm interested to get your thoughts on this too. The hardest translation from sports to business is like the only way that I would get bigger, faster, stronger was to go to the weight room and physically just work. Right.
Hmm.
And so for me, when I started the business, like I was physically in the field and I've always equated just hard work to
Yeah.
success. So one of the hardest things for me to do has been let go of the field as we've grown. Like I consistently, that's how I grew up. I grew up working in my dad's concrete business. I was paid every summer because I would show up and work hard out in the summer heat doing concrete. And as the business grows, I continually am reminded of it's not the best use of my time to be in the field, even though like I still enjoy it and I still love being there with the guys. Like, for example, 2 weeks ago, I went back into the field to help out and I was operating one of our pieces of equipment and track slipped off and set the crew back like 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, this is stupid, Austin. Like, there's a million other things that you could be doing to help this business grow. And you're coming back into the field where we have more than competent people who are arguably now better than I am or ever will be at operating equipment. And yet I'm going back and I'm creating more issues for them to clean up. And I was like, this is stupid. And it's terrible leadership. Like, focus on what you need to do to help the business grow and like trust the people inside the business. And so that was literally just like a punch in the face. And it's happened a couple times too recently, but it sounds like you've had the same realization of like you can hire people and not only can like they can do a good job, they want to do a great job. Like most people
Yeah.
want to be good at what they do.
Yeah. And I think that part of I think I have a little advantage in that I I don't know anything about street sweeping. Like I'm not the expert. So from the start, I've had to delegate. I've had to be curious and ask people, and I've had to depend on other people's expertise. If something's wrong with the truck, I'm not telling the mechanic what's wrong with it. I'm having him come in and I'm saying, "Hey, what do we need fixed?" Or I'm having our driver talk with him and they game plan. Okay, this happened because of this, and now in order to keep this from happening in the future, we need this. I'm not making those decisions because I'm not qualified. I don't know anything about these. Like, he'll name a part that I'm still learning pieces of the truck that I'm like, I had no idea that existed, and now it's going to cost me 5 grand, and that's great, sweet. So I think I have a little bit. It's a challenge because I don't know a lot, but it's also a benefit in that I do have to depend on other people a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. This has been super fun. Before we wrap up here, I do want to talk about the transition from sports to business. So you mentioned this is your first summer. Like, is it weird not playing ball right now?
You know, It was in spring training. I think when things started to ramp up and it was my first year of like, why am I not out there? And I had the opportunity to, but I just, to be honest, I didn't pick up a bat after the season, and I was solely focused on, if I got an overseas job again, I would go play. If not, we were here to stay, and we were going to work on business things. And we didn't end up getting an overseas job, and so we were like, all right, let's wrap up. So it's been strange early on. Now, honestly, I forget the baseball season's even happening. I have, a bunch of friends and stuff that I'll keep in touch with, but a game will be on and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that's going on. And it feels like, a lifetime ago already that I was playing. But I'm having so much fun learning these skills. And this is kind of it, a lot of guys have trouble figuring out what they're going to do after baseball. And I didn't want to go just the typical path. And so it's really a game where you're just picking up skills. It's just like if I were going to go into the cage and hit and work on something with my swing. Like if I'm not hitting a curveball, like I need to practice that and get that skill. And once I get that skill, then maybe something else slipped and I need to get that. And so it's the same with running a business. Like I might not be the best on sales call. So let's learn how to close better. I might not be the best in whatever it is, doing my bids or anything like that, or managing people. So let's learn these skills. Let's build up this skill set so that when a bigger opportunity comes, or even just this business, we can run and I'm not the issue. Like I want to get out of the way and give the team everything they need by being the best leader. And so I think just taking that curiosity that I've had from baseball and sports of learning. I was never the most gifted athlete. I wasn't a natural hitter. I mean, I spent 5 years in the minor leagues, and I made a ton of swing adjustments and finally made it up to the big leagues and saw some success. So I always had to be curious, and I've just kind of taken that attribute into this.
Well, you obviously figured it out because I read 22 home runs. Is that right?
Well, yeah, that's my total. Yeah, I think my best year I had 15 with Detroit, and I led the Tigers in home runs in 2019, which 15 is not very many for a team leader. We were pretty bad, but I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the skills that you have identified right now? Let's say top three. Like, if you were to take a correlation in baseball, like, all right, hitting was one of them, or hitting a curveball. Like, if those were the skills in baseball, what are the skills in business that you've identified in this season of life? Call it the next 6 to 12 months that you are going to focus on just putting in the reps to get better at.
I think I think kind of what we've touched on, like the whole leadership side of things, and I think being a good leader is being a good delegator. Um, and having clear expectations and communicating that well, and then putting people in a position to do good work, and putting the right people in the right position and things like that. So um, I think that's a main one. I think curiosity is huge. Like I'm constantly listening to podcasts, reading books. I just finished. I hadn't ever read the E Myth, and that one, it's a classic that I just hadn't got around to. So I just read that. But yeah, just like constantly learning, because the more I'm learning and the more I talk to guys like you and people in it, I realize there's so much I don't know. Like yesterday, I had Cody Sanchez and her team came out and did an interview on us, and just asking her questions, I was like, there is so much I don't know. Like she's at whatever level 60 in owning businesses and running a team and stuff, and I'm on level 3. Like I have a business, we're now profitable, and we're just getting going. And so like realizing how much you don't know, makes me even more curious of what I'm going to learn over the next year, 2 years, 5 years. So it's I think it's just a constant game of like, what can I get out of this? What can I learn? And what skill set can I take from whatever opportunities I have?
Definitely. Love him or hate him, I have come across some of Hormozy's content recently, and one thing he said that resonated with me is, what's the next boss that you need to beat? So if this was a video game, I wasn't much of a gamer growing up. I was always playing sports or outside, but I did play some Call of Duty here and there in the dorms and whatnot. But like, it's like, what's the next boss you need to beat?
Yeah.
So what is that in your business right now, specifically?
I think the next boss, well, I don't know how many more municipal contracts are coming up around us. But I think the next boss that I need to beat is continuing to have the growth we're having with me staying out of the day to day. So I think continuing what we're doing, and then for me right now, it's what is next. Is that, am I going to do something online, like an online business, or something? I'd like to do something related to this industry, whether it's in a physical business, or just, helping other sweeping owners. I don't know how many, there's not a ton that are doing over 1 million, but there's a few really big ones. And so if I could help other, owner operators go from that 300,000 revenue to 1 million, or do something like that. I'm thinking through other ideas right now that can go along with what I'm learning, help other people who might be coming out of baseball, or just people who were in the situation I was a year, 2, 3, for me. If I can help them get to that next step, or get to where I'm at, then I think I would really enjoy that. So I haven't really gotten there of what the next boss is, but I'm kind of in that phase where I have some freedom to start to think through what that is.
Cool. Well, I will be excited to stay in touch and hear how it continues to go for you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm enjoying watching your journey as well, and keep sharing everything that you are, because it's helpful to have guys who are honest and open. And yeah, I mean, running a business is not all rainbows and perfect every day. It's hard, and a lot of people online, I think, play it up, but it's it's difficult, and it can be a grind. So it's fun to see people who are honest and open, and share the hard things too.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. I mean, that was the whole mission in the beginning of even just starting this podcast, was like, selfishly, if I can go interview other people who are either in the same scenario, they're one or two, maybe three. In like John Wilson's case, whenever I had him on, he's like 50 steps ahead of us, right? But
Yeah.
if you haven't listened to that one, go back and check out the interview with John Wilson. That dude is really sharp. And he basically just kind of like stated where I was at. And he's like, when I was at the million mark, like, here's what I thought about, and here's who I needed to go focus on hiring next. And then that will get you to X amount, right? And so it was just really cool to hear his perspective. And I just shut up the whole time and let him talk. And he basically just gave us a masterclass on like, here's 0 to 1, here's 1 to 3, here's 3 to 5, here's 5 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. And now we're at 26 million. It's kind of like where he was at. Those kinds of conversations, along with the conversations of you and I talking, it's like, I think you and I can learn so much from each other if we stay in touch. Hey, here's what I'm going through right now, or here's what I'm trying to do. Here's how I've creatively thought about this. Here's what worked and here's what didn't work. And so selfishly, that was the reason for creating the podcast in the beginning. And then in turn, it was like, well, if we just do that on air, I think other people could learn from that. It's been a fun journey so far. So I'm glad you are enjoying some of the content. And once again, I do appreciate you being on.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I appreciate it, and yeah, you guys, your podcast has definitely helped. We've implemented quite a few things that you and your guests have shared. It's always fun to pick people's brains, and learn from people who are ahead of you.
Cool. Well, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter, a little bit on Instagram. I think my Twitter is Brandon A. Dixon, and I'm just kind of sharing what I'm learning. I'm sharing the mistakes I'm making. I'm just basically building this in public and seeing what happens. So if you want to follow along, I'll be on there.
Sweet. Anything else you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, no, I appreciate you having me on and taking the time.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Owner Ops podcast. Notice how I mentioned Owner Ops. I'm releasing an update episode. I just recorded it this last week, but we're going to transition from the Owner Operator podcast to Owner Ops. And the reason being is because the inspiration came from a supplement company called Mountain Ops. Mountain Ops is specifically for backcountry hunters. When I saw this brand, it immediately made me think about, okay, these are tools and resources that can help me succeed when I'm in the mountains. Whenever we think about owner ops, I want you guys to think about these are tools, resources, strategies, and conversations with people like Brandon that can help you succeed as a small local business owner. So once again, thanks for listening. If you are enjoying this podcast, please take 30 seconds real quick and leave us a 5-star review. Just like building a service business online, Google reviews are super important. Same thing with podcasts. So if you don't mind to leave us a review, we'd appreciate that. And if you're listening on YouTube, we'd sure appreciate a like and subscribe. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less. We'll see you guys in the next episode. I wanted to introduce you to two of my growth partners. Striker Digital specializes in SEO services specifically for local service businesses. Bodie and Andy, the two co-founders, have helped me get Bear Claw Land Services to the #1 search result on Google inside my state for my specific search term. If you want to learn more, visit strikerdigital.com. That's STRYKER-digital.com. Secondly, Local Service Marketers specializes in paid ads and unlimited content creation. I've been working with Josh since the beginning of Bear Claw, and all I've had to do is upload my content, photos and video, into a shared iCloud album or Google Drive album, and they handle everything else from there. Think YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that is taken off of your plate. It saves you so much time as a local business owner. In doing so, you end up with a very professionally designed social media presence. After the presence is created, then a paid ad strategy can be implemented to help bring you more leads and win you more jobs. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit localservicemarketers.com.